Are you struggling to create an intentional headspace? Unable to connect deeper with yourself? Come, and together, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm your host, Sinead Roche, and this is the Uncomfortable Podcast. As humans, we're kind of just like naturally social creatures. It stems from like the biological need to be with people, and also just it's like easier to survive with more people. Yeah. There's more on that you can read up. But the reason why like we're not just like attuned to being with people just because like, oh, we like people, but it's also like stems from like our hormones, right? When you're with people, that promotes oxytocin, and oxytocin is kind of that trust feeling that you have. And not only does it promote oxytocin, but also dopamine. And dopamine is the brain chemical that's responsible for making all behaviors essential to survival kind of desirable and rewarding, right? And that includes social behaviors. And as great as it is that we not only we have this like kind of innate desire to be with people because you see like we're with people, we're vibing with them, I don't know, like you do better when you're around people, and statistically the connections that you have with people and like the quality of them, they improve your life, your lifetime, and also just like your overall mental being. And as great as that is that we have like these connections, that some of us have these connections, at the same time it does in a sense promote group mentality. Sometimes we don't know so much about ourselves because this entire time we've been sticking to like our group's default answer to, hey, I like this because, Erin said she liked this. I don't know. But I do think that we kind of need to spend more time by ourselves. But there's a big difference between choosing to be alone and loneliness, right? And I think that many people are really apprehensive to being alone, right? But looking at it now from like a bit of a biological standpoint, once again, being alone, it doesn't necessarily like decrease like those feel-good hormones as well, right? Being alone also promotes your oxytocin. It also decreases your stress, like in the sense that when you are alone and you are actively, intentionally being by yourself, you are able to connect more with yourself. You're able to learn to trust yourself more. That's what it is. Being able to trust yourself and being able to learn more about yourself. That's why oxytocin is being produced when you are all alone. Or even serotonin, that's another feel-good hormone, right? That's also being produced, again, when you're all alone, specifically when you're doing like exercises or meditating, getting in the sun, small things like these, right? So even though it might not necessarily be our like innate nature to be alone and to understand ourselves, there's also like biological benefits to that as well. The thing is, many people don't want to be alone, and I can say this from my own point of view because there's been times that I've hated being alone because people see being alone as loneliness. But there's a big difference with that. I think loneliness is like you don't get to choose being lonely, but you get to choose being alone, right? And I think many people, especially if you've experienced like your parents got divorced in the past, or you felt uncared for, ignored, or just abandoned, that makes you really apprehensive just to spend time one-on-one with yourself because you've had all these triggers from the past, maybe you've had depression, like not small things like this, but just occasions and actions that have happened in the past could really be impacting like your feelings on just getting to know yourself better in a sense, or just being on your own, not doing every activity with another person, just kind of sticking by yourself, right? And the thing, because loneliness I think it is really easy to fall into that, especially like when you're not being intentional about like being alone, right? And when it's kind of just you being alone happens because of other reasons. And I think what happens then is like you develop like poor mental health, like you have poor self-esteem issues perhaps, and it also can impact like your personality traits. And I understand this, but I do think it is crucial. And it's just my opinion, right? Like, again, I think most of this, I mean, yeah, it's my opinion in it, that you do need to understand that being alone is I think it's such a treasure in a sense, because when you are alone, you kind of get to know yourself more. And not only that, I think it leads you away from dependency. And so I kind of want to talk about my own like revelation on why I needed to learn to be alone and needed to learn how to spend time with people. I think I'm a really just like dependent person sometimes when it comes to like my friendships especially. Like in most of my friendship patterns, it's been like I will attach myself to one person and we kind of just do everything together. It's a lot of fun. But at the same time, like, like when it comes to like small trips that you have to do that you could literally do on your own, like I don't know, but it kind of becomes a bit toxic in the sense that you have to depend on this other person to be there in order to like properly function in some sense. And that's not to say like, hey, stop inviting your friends to everything, but like stop inviting your friends to everything. Like there are just tasks that you can do on your own, and there's just time you can also just spend with yourself. I don't know if it's just because like I might be like, I don't know, like an introvert or something like this. I don't know, maybe that also plays a part in it as well. If you're introverted or if you're extroverted, it probably does. But just being alone itself, like again, you're allowed to be within your own mental space without having to take into account other people's space as well. And moreover, not just like in order to avoid dependency, that's not the only reason why it's important, but also because it's important to, I guess, like understand yourself and not rush the time that you have with yourself. I think in most day to day, you are interacting with people or you are doing work, you have other tasks, right? So when you actually intentionally put the time aside to be alone with yourself, let's not rush it. Let's take the time, even if that means like literally it's like self-care or something like this. You're putting on face masks, you're taking a bubble bath or whatever, or you're going on a run or something like that. Like don't rush the time that you have with yourself, because many times within our day, like we have to give our time to other people. So I think it's just like, if you look at it from a different perspective of like, okay, it's kind of nice to have this time just for me. Like, I don't know, I think you see it more as like a memorable experience, just like being able to experience yourself, which I know that sounds weird because like, it's not like you can have necessarily like the biggest out of body experience. But yeah. So let's learn how to be alone. For those of us who definitely like it's harder for us to be by ourselves, I think the first thing you should take into consideration is don't judge yourself too much and don't criticize yourself. Like, yeah, it can be easier for some people. I know people who are like hyper independent, so I can see them like going about like a week, right, and not really needing to include someone in something, and not because they're antisocial, but just because like they're good at being independent. But yeah, it's not going to be the same for everyone. Everyone has different backstories in that sense. So just like kind of taking the time to like remind yourself, hey, listen, I know you might be getting anxious with this, and that's completely acceptable. And again, give yourself the grace in that moment. All right. Another way to learn to be alone is sometimes like if you are really used to those situations where there's a lot of people, right? Maybe you can recreate that. It's kind of like recreating that illusion of people. So maybe having music on the background while you're reading a book, something small like that, or listening to podcasts, right, where you would in your head have like a conversation. I don't know. But or even like watching a movie, small things like this that can imitate like other people being around could kind of ease you into just like being alone by yourself, even if like you still have to like recreate a scene, right? Then of course there's working with a therapist, understanding why this is happening, what in the past has made you really like avoidant of spending time by yourself. And lastly, I would say like, and I think probably the best thing that I've done is I've created a schedule, and I've also kind of romanticized my alone time. Like in the past, I think like 2 years ago, I did not enjoy spending so much time by myself. Like I was doing it, right? And I had work to do, but like I didn't enjoy spending time with myself and just being like, yeah, like just chilling with Sinead. And I think that now that I've made it kind of a routine for me to like, for me, my Friday nights are dedicated to me. I don't know what I do on those Friday nights. Sometimes I will literally put on a fashion show in my room. I will try on clothes that I haven't seen in months. And I don't know, I'll have fun like that. But for me, I've kind of romanticized it in a sense. Like, I could literally be dancing in my room, and that is enough for me, right? But I make sure that my Friday is just alone time for me. I can tell you right now, I've said no to so many plans in the past. Like, and it's not to be rude, it's just like, that is Sinead time, you know? So we prioritize that. Now, when you are alone, right, there's gonna be some things you're gonna realize about yourself. And I think one of the greatest things that I've seen is that like I've learned what's so great about me. Besides just like, obviously like in the beginning you might feel anxious about it, especially if you're not used to it. But once you get past that, like you kind of feel a bit calmer. At least that's been my experience. I guess just like being in silence with yourself, understanding your thoughts and sometimes even stopping like negative thought processes that you didn't even know were like just unconsciously happening. And within the time that you are with yourself, I feel like you do get to learn a lot more about yourself in the sense of you could be asking yourself questions or you could be seeing, oh, these are some great qualities I have. Like for me, I loved how organized I am. Like I love doing on Friday nights, I just love doing my little planner. Um, it doesn't look organized, but it is organized. And I kind of just loved that idea for me, like, and just seeing myself put the effort in for all of these different events. Because, like, if you're in my planner, one of the things I do is, like, if you're in my planner, like, I'm keeping that appointment with you no matter what, like, or I'll let you know. And also for that, like, that showed me, okay, I put, like, a lot of effort into the relationships that I have. Because I can tell you right now, if you ask me to, let's hang out for lunch, I will write, I'm hanging out with such and such person for lunch. Or if we say we're going shopping on Saturday, I'm writing that down. Like, it does not matter for me, but like, it doesn't matter that it's like maybe such a small event or something like that, but for me, that was just like a tangible proof of like how much I cared for a person. So just like, I don't know. I think when you're in these moments, like by yourself, you're able to see, oh, I actually do this much. For other people, or I do this much for myself. Like, I saw myself like actually like investing more time into like certain skill sets that I wanted to do outside of school. Like I was like, wow, I actually do this much for myself. Like that's so amazing. Or yeah, other things. But just like I guess like you learn to see what's so great about you in some sense because you're taking the time to actually appreciate it. And I just think in our day to day, because like it's so chaotic most of the time, or there's so many other like influences, right? And you might be craving for like social validation, and external validation, that when you're taking the time for yourself, you kind of just get to validate yourself, which sounds weird, but like I love doing it. I love saying like I'm proud of the fact that I'm able to manage all of this and, really take time for myself. Yeah. And at the same time, when you are with yourself, you do also learn what some things that you might want to change about yourself. And I think the great thing is when you're alone, you're not doing it because you need to change for other people in a sense, but you're seeing that, okay, listen, I really don't like this habit of mine. I want to change for myself. So like for me, an example that I have is that I'm lazy as organized as I am, and also I think driven. I'm also quite lazy when it comes to certain things. So I made it kind of like a goal to really just work on that and set timers and every hour on the hour make sure I'm doing such and such. Just because I didn't like that habit of mine, or even like learning like certain home skills. I can't even lie to you. I don't know if I'm the best homemaker. I don't even know what to say. Homemaker might not be the right terminology, but like I'm not the cleanest person, we'll say, right? So and I didn't like that habit of mine, like kind of seeing it on my own. So like just like making improvements there. Yeah, just being able to change that. Like I think it's great because when you're in that space, again, us or external people are not telling this to you. Like you're just kind of like realizing yourself, and you're like, oh wow, might want to change that, right? And I think another thing that you learn when you are by yourself is that you learn to appreciate your value. Because when you are also spending time with yourself, you're putting time into you. And because you're getting to know yourself better, especially if you're asking yourself like more questions on like, hey, what do I want to do? What do I like? Small things like this. I definitely think that you understand yourself better. And so you understand, hey, like, these are my like values, or like I value being like this. And you kind of just become, I feel like, more confident in yourself, because I do think that being alone is a huge part of self-love and self-compassion and understanding your self-worth. So incorporating like other things where you're taking care of yourself, it just allows you to really see how beautiful and like just how great of a person you really are on your own. And I think that when you have enough alone time, like you step outside and you're like, listen, I value myself enough on my own. Like this, I'm not taking this these low expectations or these low standards that you're setting right now. And that's for like anything, relationship, friendship, jobs, or even sometimes like family members. Like you're realizing just how great you are. And moreover, I think one of the good things is also that you are learning how to kind of regulate yourself. Like, because when you are in a space with yourself, sometimes, like, as I said before, like you could get triggered, right? And then learning how to regulate those emotions on your own, that's a huge step. I know for myself, like, one of my strategy is that I journal now, right? And I didn't know that I needed it that much, because in the past I've always gone to people, but having journaling as like another outlet where I'm able to self-regulate myself has been, I think, truly powerful, because it's like I don't need to share every single thought that I have, even though I do. I do still. But yeah, just being able to see that, hey, listen, like, even though it's great to ask for external help, let me see what I can do on my own, and move on from there. And lastly, I think that when you spend more time with yourself, you learn to trust yourself more. And I think that allows you to make better decisions in the future when it comes to anything, because you know who you are, you know where you stand, you know how you are doing mentally, you know what's going on around you, but you also know that these are the limits and the boundaries that you might be putting up so that doesn't internally impact you. I feel like you just learn to trust yourself more. And so when you are making decisions, you are confident in those decisions. You are not backing down, because you're like, I'm here right now. I know exactly why. And even in some cases where like your entire group might disagree, right? Like you understand why you're doing such and such, right? So yeah, I think that being alone is a great opportunity to just like get to know yourself even better. And I think that being by yourself, it just elevates you and like to another point, because I think you then realize like why other people also want to be around you. And not only that, like you don't, as I said before, like you're not dependent on others then when it comes to like perhaps you're alone for a while, like because you're like, I'm so great, I'm gonna keep this going, like this one-on-one with me. Like for right now, I don't see other things that might be interesting around me. So what I have right now, it's amazing. It's good for me. So yeah, I think the question I want you guys to ask yourselves is, for those of you who especially like you see yourself hanging around your friends a lot, or just like going to social settings a lot, are you afraid of being alone, and why? Thank you guys so much for listening.